Welcome back to Video Guys Live. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. We teach you about the products we sell, technologies, and what's out there. And today's show is going to be a lot of product, a lot of technology, and a lot of cool stuff. We've got George from Epiphan on, and we are going to be talking about the breakthrough product that they just, I'm going to say finally, because we were really hoping we'd have this a little sooner, but it's finally shipping. It's available. We have it in stock. Dealers across the country have it in stock. The Pearl Nano. So I want to start with just going over, what's the Pearl Nano in brief terms. First of all, I want to say that it's an end-to-end appliance. And can we go to this camera just so I can show a little bit of it? Here it is here, front face, back face. If you're familiar with the Pearl and the Pearl Mini, this is the little brother of the product, but I don't like calling it the little brother. I don't think that's fair. I really want to refer to it as being the most cost-effective standalone endpoint for remote production, remote learning, remote streaming, whichever way you want to go with it, because this product can do everything that a Pearl Mini and a Pearl can do. It's just scaled down to be simpler. And I think with that simplicity comes an ease of use, especially if you want to put Pearl Nanos, throughout an organization like a college, university system or a public school system. So you can stream, you can record, you can take your video and audio signal, you can do some preset screens that look really cool, so you get some value add there. And you can send the output via HDMI, stream, you can record, it's got SDI, confidence, control little monitor there. It's really a tremendous product, especially when you want to get your content out there, but the person producing or doing the content, the person I call talent, although I don't like to refer to myself as talent, it's a little stretch of the term, doesn't really have to do anything. It's one of those set it and forget it appliances, and it can be actually controlled remotely, which we're going to get into later also. So George, take it away, dig us a little deeper into the Pearl Nano.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it there. The main idea is to be able to bring in, professional video and audio signals and do all of the encoding, streaming, and recording on one device. And you're right, it is, not nearly as capable as its bigger brothers in Pearl Mini or Pearl 2, but it doesn't need to be. We often talk about it as being the perfect fit encoder. And what we mean by that is that it has so many flexible options built in. Things like, being powered off of the DC power jack or powered off of PoE. That gives us a lot of flexibility for physical installation. We have the SDI or HDMI inputs. We have the HDMI output and HDMI zero latency pass-through, so we can put it in line with maybe a projector in a conference room. And of course, professional audio, which is something you don't see in a lot of the devices in this class.
Yeah,
and that really
XLR is killer on this. If we can go back into here, I want to show that there's XLR input, 2 XLRs here. Just to me, that's tremendous, because if I'm going to be hooking this into some kind of conference or lecture center, I have to work with the gear that's there. And if the people ran that room correctly, they ran XLR audio in there.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's many places that, are trying to adapt existing rooms, existing structures, and get live streaming, right? So, I know we're going to look at, some of the markets and use cases for Nano. And one of them that I think is going to be popular is conferences or live events or even houses of worship, where chances are they already have a lot of the professional audio gear, and they just need an encoder to get everything going. And that's exactly what Nano can provide without needing to adapt, things down to a consumer level signal like you see so many times.
Absolutely. And audio is so important. And I want to apologize to people earlier in the show. My lapel mic was banging against a chain that I had and people were getting clicking. So thank you for the feedback, Ken. And I think you'll see that that's been corrected. Another feature of this product that I think is monumental, especially if you're going to use it in the education space, is PoE. You can power it over Ethernet, so I don't have to worry about running additional wires and outlets and things like that. And that is real important because of the safety and the rules that schools are under, especially public schools and public universities. They can't just plug things in willy-nilly all over the place. That's not what we could do. So with PoE, it opens up a world of possibilities where I don't have to worry that I have that AC jack anywhere near where I want to deploy the product.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the verticals for the Nano. We talked about education a lot, but I want to talk about house of worship. I think it's great for a small church, and we're going to go into how it can be part of a bigger system or on its own, because remember, you may already have a system that's got an audio mixer and maybe a video mixer or a video camera, and now you can plug all that stuff into the Nano and use your Nano for streaming and recording. which is really
Exactly.
great. And if you want to load a graphic into it, you can even have a little bug like the name of your church or the 800 number or what have you. We're going to get into layouts a little later. For conferencing, for sales conferencing, teleconferencing, for sales promotions, tremendous, especially the way that we're going to show you later. You can integrate a PowerPoint or a presentation with your talent, and you get to control how that looks. Legislative is very interesting to me. You know, we're getting more and more calls from local towns and cities and stuff like that who are being asked to deliver to stream their stuff, and corporations as well. And talk about that a little bit, because I think what we've seen is along with what I said before, in 2020, you know, we made live streaming work. Now the pressure is on everyone to deliver a live streaming component to what they're doing. So even when the world gets better and we can all get together as unlimited amount of people together, I think streaming certain things that are made for the public to the public is going to be very important, because it's the way you communicate with your constituency or your sales force or your customers.
Well, absolutely. And you know, I think in all of these verticals, one of the common things here is you might just need something really, really basic with a camera and a presentation and audio, or you might be putting it at the end of a chain of a larger existing production system. Nano fits both of those very well. And maybe you're starting with the former and growing into the latter. It can follow you along with that. In some of those verticals, like legislative, like you mentioned, you know, I would argue that public interaction or public knowledge of those things is kind of a cornerstone of democracy. So making sure that we have that content out there is critical. You know, normally we would have public galleries, people could go in and sit there. That's not a thing. So we need to stream them. But once we start streaming them, we've also opened up the potential audience far wider than a public gallery could ever be. And that's really important for information sharing, whether it's a government body, whether it's a corporation, or whether it's a house of worship. We're talking about growing the audiences and making sure that everyone can participate in whatever it is that we're doing.
Absolutely. Now, we've already hit on most of the next slide, because God forbid these discussions could happen linearly, but the Nano really has a lot of things that I think put it like a class above. You know, I like to steal the Spinal Tap term, where we turn it up to 11. So I'm just going to run down these examples of how the Nano doesn't get it done, turns it up to 11. Audio, we have XLR and RCA, 11. A front screen for confidence control, an 11. Future-proof, it supports SRT, 4K, H.265. That is tremendous. For $1,495, I'm getting a product that should be able to run for 3, 4, 5 years. Because once I set it and forget it and leave it alone, it's not like something that's going to get banged around, but it is portable if you wanted to take it with you. PoE, incredible. And then the other thing that I like is you got the SD card in there, which clicks in nicely for me to record my content to, and I can record that content in a high res. It doesn't have to be the streaming level, you know, compression I'm using. So I just, this product, it's not a 10, it's an 11. It goes beyond what you'd expect from an encoder. And at this price, it is a tremendous value, and I think it just delivers. A lot of things are Swiss Army knives, where they're good at everything but great at nothing. This is everything this thing does, it does great.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was definitely one of the objectives, was to pack as much as we could into a small footprint and as we possibly could. And I think we've accomplished that. The other nice thing about that size is that if you have to maybe ship it to someone as a piece of road kit, being smaller, lighter weight, it makes it much more cost effective to just send to someone. And you mentioned earlier the idea of remotely controlling it. That's also a possibility, so that that person doesn't even really need to know much more about it than plugging it in. And then, yeah, of course, the flexibility, and again, this is something that stands out in the class, where there are other devices kind of in the same category that have two inputs and can do a video and a presentation. But oftentimes the layout, if you want a picture-in-picture, is very static. There's 2 or 3 options. There's not really much flexibility there. We've tried to make this as flexible as it possibly can be within Nano, so that you can free-form design where you want the sizing and positioning of these things, add the graphics as backgrounds, do whatever you need to do, so that you can run a very basic production straight off of Nano without anything else if you don't need to.
Yeah, very cool. Up here we have a couple examples of some side-by-sides and picture-in-pictures, and now all the Pearl family allows you to do this, but now we want to break into something really cool. Adam and I and our team, we set up a little custom kind of layout design for us to use on the show, and we're actually going to run a little bit through the Pearl. Now, one of the things I want to let people know is you're going to see the green screen background now, guys, because because, you know, we can't chroma key at the same time. But as you can see, what do we have here? We have the big screen. So if I'm teaching or doing a sales pitch to a sales conference, you know, there's all the goods. I'm here, I'm on the screen, I'm in the window, I'm a size where I'm engaging. I told Adam I want to be able to see my hands because that's how I talk and do stuff, but maybe I just wanted a static headshot. And then look along that lower bottom, we have the graphics, Videoguys streaming live from the Pearl Nano. So I can get my branding up there at the same time. Now, there's a very flexible interface. We could have moved stuff all around. We just wanted to show you one example of the cool stuff you could do. So do with that.
Yeah, and I think the main thing there is that when you can make your content more dynamic, if you will, it's more engaging for people to watch. And if they're engaged, they're actually paying attention and listening to what you have to say.
So think about that, educators. Engagement means your students are paying attention and they want to learn. So important. Think about that in House of Worships. Engagement means they're engaged in the message that you're giving them. They're absorbing it. They're a part of it. They're not just passively pretending to listen. And we all know, we've all been on those Zoom calls where, you know, you're typing, you're doing everything, but one of the little things of managing that layout and delivering the content in a way that's more eye candy appealing to people can make a huge difference in the attention span of what they get. I know our shows, you know, we go a little crazy. We use the TriCast and stuff like that, but we'll typically get more than half our audience hanging on until almost the entire show. Why? A, they want to hear our content, but it's also engaging. If I was a talking head through a Zoom, or we just had you on the show alone as a talking head, and then you could share your screen and go to the full screen and we'd lose you and you'd be in a postage stamp, no one wants to watch that, my friend.
No, it's not nearly as interesting.
So one of the things I want you to go into a little bit is, let's talk about, we had the Pearl Mini, we now have the Pearl Nano. Let's talk about the differentiating things that are different. And I don't want you to think of their family of products. So it's not that one's better or worse than the other. It's what fits for what you're doing at the time. There are certain things where the Pearl Mini is absolutely an advantageous piece to use, but you can't beat the Pearl Nano's cost, especially if you have to use multiple units for multiple unit deployment. So let's go into those differences a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, Pearl Nano, it's obviously smaller, it's less expensive, it's great for those smaller applications. You know, it has that flexibility of power like PoE we've hit on a couple of times, but it's not necessarily the full standalone production box that Pearl Mini or even Pearl 2 could be. So when we go to Pearl Mini, if we really need switching, multiple encoded outputs, maybe that larger touch screen, because it'll help us integrate with our content management system better, then Pearl Mini is really going to shine in those scenarios. And it does offer more inputs as well. So it's kind of, you know, a scale thing. How many inputs do you need? How many outputs do you need? And how much are you trying to do on one box? So it's not a right or wrong. It's just which fit is right for you.
And one of the things I want to stress is you can give us a call, 800-323-2325, and you can talk to our live folks like Adam, who runs the show, or any of our other sales team, and they can help you decide which is the one that best fits your needs, your budget, and if you are trying to lay out multiple rooms that have to be tied together, we could talk about why you want one of these in this room and the others in there. So by all means, feel free to give us a call. We have a chat on our website, or you can email us to sales@videoguys.com. We'll be more than happy to help you figure out what's the right Pearl for your needs. So let's jump a little more on potential workflows with Pearl Nano. Now, we're starting this with what I'm going to say is just a typical Pearl Nano setup, you know, and this is probably the most basic thing you can do, which is just, you know, using it as a basic streamer and encoder.
Exactly, yeah. So maybe we only have a single camera, we just need to stream that. Maybe we have a camera and a presentation, we need to do a very basic mix between them and stream that, record at the same time. But with the HDMI outputs, let's say it's the HDMI pass-through, we can put it in line with the projector in the room so that our slides are going into our production and still on the projector or larger screen in the room. We have the HDMI output, which could also be used at the same time, which could show our production feed. So maybe we could feed that to a breakout room next door or to another device. This gives us a ton of flexibility in where we position it, and it's small enough to take on the road with you to go wherever you go.
And that HDMI pass-through is really cool, because if you want to do some basic iMag, where you just want that one shot to be, you know, passed through to your overthrow room or on screens on the side, it's great for that. Let's talk about Pearl as a standalone encoder. Now, one of the things that everyone knows, and that is these switchers like a TriCaster, if you're running vMix or you're running OBS, you have another system, or maybe you have a mixing console that doesn't have streaming in it, you can now add a Pearl Nano and get streaming and encoding, which is real important. And also, if your system does it, you can offload that from your system so that your CPU and GPU can kind of concentrate on delivering the stuff you have in your show. Because one of the things that happens sometimes is, let's say I'm running vMix or OBS or Wirecast on my own computer and it's going well, but it's eventually maybe I'll make my shows more and more complicated as I go, bringing in multiple guests and multiple graphics and moves and stuff, and all of a sudden I start getting some problems, some drop frames, some sync issues. Well, offloading the encoding is one of the easiest ways to extend the life of your system. You don't always have to buy a new computer. You can buy a really good encoder that gets the job done. And I think Nano definitely is a standalone encoder, phenomenal, because what we talked about before, I'm not just limited to H.264 with the Nano. I have a lot of encoding options, don't I?
Yeah, exactly. So, taking the main output from another mixing system over HDMI or SDI, bringing that into Nano and just having it do that encoding work means there's very little to configure on Nano. We don't even have to worry about any of that mixing stuff we've talked about. We're just bringing one input in, doing our encoding, and sending it out. I mean, there's a lot of other encoders on the market, but one of the things that is somewhat limited to them is that they often might only do certain codecs or only do certain stream types.
Yep.
We've tried to pack as much as we can into Nano, although I'm not a big fan of the term future-proofing. It's something that, being flexible in terms of more current codecs and more current stream types is important. So just as an example, all Pearl models already support RTMP, RTMPS, HLS, Dash, and SRT. Now that's a lot of acronyms, but just last week, YouTube finally publicly opened HLS ingestion. This is the first sign of a major platform moving away from only RTMP.
Yep.
This is going to be necessary and is going to be happening more and more on all of these platforms as the needs of streams become more advanced. Pearls are already equipped to do this, whereas there are many encoders on the market that may never get updated beyond RTMP and are going to find themselves left behind.
The other part of flexibility that I think is critical, we talked about this early on, is my I/O flexibility. Maybe my mixer only has an SDI out available because the HDMI is driving the screen I'm using while I'm using it. Maybe I have XLR for my soundboard, or I have RCA audio. With the Pearl, if it comes out, we can encode it with the Nano. And for a device at this price, that's pretty incredible also, because these inexpensive, less expensive devices under $2,000 tend to be very limited in their SDI only or their HDMI only, or they don't have XLR. We've got all that. So you have flexibility on the encoding side and you have flexibility on the input side.
But also simplicity, right? We've tried,
Yeah.
It is part of the Pearl family, so its user interface is just as simple to use as any of the other Pearl models. In fact, it looks almost identical. So being familiar with one model, they'll be the same as the other. Sometimes trying to figure out these more complicated systems, people go to school for years to learn broadcast, and that's what a lot of other systems are designed for. Pearl Minis, Pearl 2s, Pearl Nanos are designed to really be used by just about anybody with a pretty shallow learning curve to get going, but of course very flexible and powerful to do just about anything.
Yeah, very cool. And I want to jump into an area now that if you've heard of these companies, you'll understand how valuable the Pearl Nano is, and that's Kaltura and Panopto. And if you're in education, higher education, a high school system, and you guys have done all this video production, well, you need a way to organize it. You need a way to make it accessible to your students and your staff, and you need like a management system to control, what goes on. And with the Kaltura and the Panopto and Pearl family of products, I not only can control and manage my content, I can actually control this device and tell it when to turn on, when to start streaming, when to record. So I might have one professor who says, I don't want a live stream, but I want my stuff recorded, or I want it sent directly to our own personal cloud, where I'll make it available to my students later. Or you might have a teacher who says, I'm only going to do my lecture when I'm streaming remote to people, and that's the way I'm doing my stuff, but I also want to record it. So talk a little bit about Kaltura and Panopto, how tightly Epiphan works with them, and I really want to stress that at $14.95 as a head-end unit for Kaltura Panopto, some of these school districts are putting 50, 100, 200 classrooms. And if you're going to do that, that adds up to a ton of savings with the Pearl Nano, and maybe you were delaying going with Kaltura Panopto because you thought that advanced cost was going to be so high. It isn't, and this product is going to let your professors, your teachers are going to love it. The layout stuff we talked about works great, and the integration with these two leaders in that industry is second to none. So George, a little bit, I know I said a lot, but I'm sure you can add a few things.
Yeah, no, exactly. You covered most of it there, and that's the thing. It's sometimes when we're trying to get the integrations for Kaltura or Panopto at a relatively low cost, we might go to a computer-based platform. But by the time we have a decent computer and some capture cards hanging off of it to get good quality content, we're often above $1,500 already. And we still are dealing with maybe an unreliable Windows machine with multiple points of failure. Something like Pearl Nano, powered over PoE, tucked away in a podium where no one sees it, fully integrated with the APIs from these platforms, means that the schedule can be downloaded, fully automated, do its stream and record, it goes back to the platform, and the professor, or whoever it is really not involved in any serious way other than focusing on what their job is, not an AV job.
Yeah, and one of the things that I don't consider Windows 10 machines to be, fallible or stuff, but what happens is that people and Windows 10 machines tend to create situations. So, you might be an auto update from Microsoft that screws up where the professor comes in. Maybe someone touched it and now they've screwed around with what the video input is, the audio input is, or what the camera settings are. And those things drive people crazy. And I know, like, half the time when I get on a Zoom or a WebEx, something asks me to update before I go. The beauty of this is it truly acts as an appliance. It turns on, it does its job, it turns off. And that turning on and off can be completely controlled through Kaltura or Panopto from a central location, a centralized IT. So all the professor really would have to do is say, plug your laptop into here. There's a little cable waiting for him. The mic is there or it isn't. He turns the mic on and he goes and he does his thing. And when he's done, he unplugs, he leaves, and we wait for the next professor to come into the classroom. It is magic when this stuff is set up correctly. And I use that term on purpose because I don't think people in education realize how worrisome it can be for the we want a teacher teaching. We don't want the guy worrying about, is this going to work right? Did I hit this setting right? Is this going? Or, oh, wait a second, I opened up the wrong screen on my laptop and now something's going crazy. You want to just let teachers teach. And
Exactly.
That's what a Pearl with Kaltura Panopto does. And with the Nano, you can deploy that many of them. It's just that simple. As a head end for these two products, nothing better. And at $14.95, by the time you get a laptop and you load everything else and you get an encoder, you get the stuff, you're at a more expensive price for a system that's more prone to failure, more complicated, and just doesn't, this just works. It just works.
Well, exactly. And again, we're talking about those professional video and audio inputs that Nano has that computers don't have without adding a whole bunch of accessories. And that just adds cost and cost and cost.
Okay, George, now we're going to jump to not future-proof, but the future. We're going to get a little buzzwordy here. We're going to talk about SRT. And I think some folks watching the show say, how do I set this up as a destination? What's with SRT? And one of the things I got to really comment about is SRT is basically, when we set up our studio right now, we're using NDI. So through NDI, we're using IP, and all the devices in here are talking to each other via my Ethernet. Simple gig E. What SRT lets me do is it lets me take that to locations anywhere using the public internet. And that's my favorite way of describing it, although they're not the same thing. But if you can understand NDI, think of SRT as NDI on a global public internet level. And what SRT, low latency, you get device control, you get your video both ways. But one of the problems with SRT is you got to configure endpoints everywhere. And that tends to be a pain, and sometimes people get it wrong, and sometimes you think you did it, but someone hits a button on a laptop or a computer and changes something. Well, now, with the Pearl Nano at $1,500, it is the world's best, least expensive SRT endpoint on the planet, bar none.
Yeah, and I think this is probably my personal favorite workflow, and that's only because I live this one every single day for content creation, because this is exactly what we've been doing here internally at Epiphan for nearly a year for us to create our own content. Now, I've primarily used a Pearl Mini in that time, but now that I have a Nano, I have a much less expensive box sitting on my desk. It's not taking up a huge amount of space. And with this as a remote contribution encoder, I would say it's not just the future, because the future is now. People are doing this now. I can't even tell you the number of customers that I talk to on a daily basis that are so excited about this contribution encoding workflow using SRT. It's unbelievable. From small corporations to the biggest things you could think of, we're talking to them all about this because it's become necessary and it makes things so easy. The low latency is great, but you can also encrypt it. You can traverse firewalls very easily. It's better at adapting to unpredictable networks. Like, it's just a fantastic technology that once you have it set up, which, yeah, you need to do a little bit of configuration, but once it's set up, it's so easy to use. And then through something like Pearls, like this diagram here has a Nano feeding into a Pearl 2.
Yep.
And that's what we do internally for our productions. Once you have that, your producer doesn't even have to be local to either box because they can control both of those units totally remotely. And it kind of adds a third point of just control onto that diagram. And again, that's what we do internally every single day.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to stress is SRT is the standard. So we're showing Epiphan Pearls working with Pearls, but the truth of the matter is any SRT device can communicate with any SRT device.
Yeah.
And it really is, it's better than plug and play. Once you find each other, it just happens. It's a very cool standard that really the people who make the SRT devices are held to a very high level to make sure that standard works. And the result is really plug and play global remote production opportunities are really happening. Workflows are happening now. People are figuring this stuff out. It's amazing. And we laughed about it, but I could see taking a Pearl Nano and having it like in my backpack, and I could be a producer who could be flying someplace. All I need to do is have reliable internet when I get there, plug my laptop or whatever I'm using in, and I'm in. I'm running the production, I'm doing what I'm doing, and it just opens up so many capabilities. It's kind of mind-boggling. I think, I as part of my 2021, 2020, we figured out how to do live stream because we had to. 2021, we're going to make it work better. We're going to look better and get it easier. I think come the end of 21, 22, we're going to figure out how to do it all from anywhere to anywhere. And that's what SRT really gives us.
Well, exactly. And one of the concepts with SRT was, why buy a multi-million-dollar satellite truck if you're a news agency when you could do it over the public internet probably better? And Nano's a prime example of a device that can help do that. You could send this into the field. Someone just uses an internet signal, a general public internet, sends it back to wherever the home control room is over SRT, super low latency, higher quality than satellite, and way, way, way cheaper.
Cool. So we got to the Nano. We did a great job on it. I want to talk about the rest of the product line for a second, just because it's a family. So we have the Pearl Mini at $34.95. It's a true switcher. In addition to being an encoder or a streamer, it lets you pick multiple different settings simultaneously for your streaming, your encoding, and your recording. Cool product. Then there's the Big Daddy, the Pearl 2. And the Pearl 2 is available rack mountable with dual side-by-side. There's a 4K upgrade for it. It's really a 6-input mixer switcher. You're not going to go crazy with the kind of features you get from a TriCaster, but it's not set up to do that. It's set up to be simple, to be easy, and to just work. And we have a lot of Pearl 2s being deployed in like government agencies and schools where they have a closet filled with a rack that might have 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 of these. So they have multiple rooms feeding it. And it's just recording for people who need to, record meetings, record musicians practicing their rehearsals, things like that. So just such a cool, powerful product and a great, powerful family of products that can all interact together, can all be used with SRT, and can all be used as SRT endpoints with each other with any other SRT workflows.
Yep.
So we made this little comparison chart. If you could bring it up full screen, we're going to leave it up full screen for a little bit. And I don't really want to talk this over. For folks who want to read it, it's all here. We'll post it on the slide too. But you can see it's, it's the Big Daddy, the Pearl 2, the Mini, which is smaller, the Nano, which is the smallest. We can help you find the one that's right for your needs based on the inputs, the outputs, and what you need. It might be that you might want a certain particular feature where we're going to say, the Nano's just not enough for this. You need the Mini. You might be looking at the Mini, we might say, that's really Pearl 2 what you need. Or you might have a system where we say, hey, put a Pearl 2 in this one room that it's going to be, and then we can put a whole bunch of Nanos in the other. And oh yeah, that one room where you want to actually do mixing, we'll put a Mini in there. So you can balance to meet your budget what you need and have all these appliances. And the reason I'm saying appliances is because you really don't need an IT department to run these things, but you can get centralized control through an IT department.
And the other thing is that if you end up in a mixed environment like that, the usability and the experience of using all three models is virtually the same. You know, you're talking about one training session instead of three training sessions, or people forgetting how one system works versus the other. The UI and the settings and everything like that is familiar across all of them. And that can really help simplify your workforce to understand the different pieces you're using.
Yeah, and we didn't want to bring it up this show because we've shown the interface, you know, countless times on our Pearl and our other shows, but there's several videos available that you can watch at our website or the Epiphan website that'll show you just how point and click and easy their interface really is as a tool where you can, via HTML, access your Pearl, Pearl Mini, or your Pearl Nano. Cool. Next, we kind of hit on using systems together, so I don't have to go on that anymore. Let's talk about something that's really cool, changing gears a little bit, and that is you guys are now offering an Epiphan Cloud. Now, that's a whole show in and of itself, but George, give me the 2-minute elevator pitch on the Epiphan Cloud and what makes it so cool.
Well, the idea generally is a central place to be able to monitor, control, and do more with a fleet of Epiphan and particularly Pearl devices. So throughout this, we've touched a couple times on, you know, remotely controlling a Pearl without being close to it. The easiest way to do that is with Epiphan Cloud. You can pair your Pearls, doesn't matter what models, to your cloud account. You can monitor them. You can change some very basic settings. You could start-stop recording, start-stop streaming. You can even remotely log in and drill down into the full administrator interface through a secure tunnel from the cloud. So we have customers, especially in the education market, who some have 100, some have 200, some have 500 Pearls deployed across campuses. And you know, they need to manage all these devices, and that gets even harder when you have people working remotely.
Yeah.
But cloud means we can do that from anywhere. It doesn't matter. We can manage them all. We can check up on what's going on. We can set custom alerts so that if something goes offline, we can be notified. It is really all about fleet management in the cloud, and it's a great tool.
For that, I kind of asked Adam to mute me, but I don't know if he was able to do it in time.
I'm sorry.
All right. George, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we did a great job talking about these products. I knew we were going to push the 30-minute rule because it's fun to talk to you. We shared some cool stuff. Before I go into, in fact, let me introduce what's on the next shows, but then I want to bring you back because I have a question for you that came from the audience, and then I also want to give you just a wrap-up moment, which I always do have our guests. So let's bring this up full screen. What do we have coming up? Well, next week, real excited. We have an Ask the Video Guys. We're really going to talk about classroom streaming and focus on classroom streaming. Yeah, we'll probably hit some of the Epiphan stuff back again, but we're going to look at all kinds of stuff. And it's really not classroom streaming, but let's call it education streaming. And then the following week, we're going to do a show that's more on live streaming software and plugins and tools that we have available to make live streaming better. So I want to bring back George, if you could. George, we had a question from the crowd, let's say, and they asked a real good question, which is, you know, do you ever think you'll have, like, people love the Sling Studio product, and right now it's unavailable. They've had some production problems, but people would love the ability if we could bring in a phone that was on the Wi-Fi somehow or in. You know, Wirecast has their Rendezvous. There's a few NDI apps that are out there. I agree with this request completely. It would be amazing if I could bring in via Wi-Fi wireless, either my phone or maybe I plug something into my phone that I could then bring it in wireless into a Pearl or a Pearl family product. Is that something you guys have thought about at all?
Well, depending on how you look at it, it's actually possible right now. So for example, another way you can accomplish this is actually using SRT that we've touched on a couple of times. And I've done this myself from my phone to my Pearls that I have here in my home. There are multiple applications available on iOS and Android that can output SRT streams or NDI streams for that matter. And so depending on the Pearl you have, if that Wi-Fi and the wired Ethernet that Pearl is on are part of the same network, you can do that right now using those streaming protocols. So High Vision, the creators of SRT, they have their own app called High Vision Play. I've used that one. There's a couple of others as well that can output SRT. Not all of them are free. Some of them are paid apps, but they do exist. And of course, there are NDI apps. If you're a Pearl 2 user and you want to bring in some NDI streams, Pearl 2 can do that, and that could be coming from your phone as well. So there are some ways to do it. Generally speaking, and in my experience as a tech guy, Wi-Fi is a convenient technology, but when it
Yep.
comes to video streaming, it's not the most reliable. And so we've kind of intentionally, as we're building products to be for a professional group, tried to make sure that we're not limited by the potential breakdowns of Wi-Fi. Let's be honest, as a tech guy, a tech support guy, I don't want to take those phone calls because at the end of the day, it won't be the fault of the hardware. It'll just be the fault of the Wi-Fi. And that's, if you've ever taken a call from your mother on that, just imagine that at a bigger scale, right?
Yep.
So that's...
100% correct. So there's a great show today on the Pearl Nano. We ran a little long, which I don't have a problem with. Like I said, for $14.95, the Pearl Nano is in stock and available from Videoguys and from dealers across the country. George, I like to give my guests like a little wrap-up time, a minute or two to just say whatever you want to say about today's show, about the Nano, about the weather. I don't care. The floor is yours.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. It's my pleasure to be here. And we're really, really excited about Pearl Nano. We've shipped a lot of them out to our partners all over the US and all over the world. And I can't wait to see how our customers deploy them and use them. So, of course, any questions that you have, throw them at Videoguys. You can always reach out to us here at Epiphan directly as well through our website, email, phone calls, whatever you need. We're here to help, to answer any technical questions you have, and to help figure out which device fits your needs the best. And ultimately, that's what we want to do.
Cool. And George, you do a show yourself with Epiphan, so take a few seconds, give us a plug. What time and day is your show on?
Yeah, so we've actually, coming into the new year, made some changes. We don't do our show weekly anymore. We do it every other week.
Cool.
So every other Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern, we do a live show talking about all kinds of different things related to streaming. We actually have some really interesting interviews coming up with some other technology providers. And sometimes we're just talking about what's out there in streaming news and figuring it out as we go along. Because yes, we make these products, but we're also streaming enthusiasts and we love to play. So it's all about that.
Cool. George, thank you so much for being on the show. I want to thank all our viewers. I want to remind you that you can watch us on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube Live. Please like us on our media, Facebook, YouTube, follow us, like us, love us, help spread the love, spread the joy, share our files, share our videos, and also remember you can call us and ask us any questions you have about the products we sell at 800-323-2325. This is Gary from Videoguys. We'll see you next Tuesday. Peace. Thanks, George.
Videoguys is available Monday through Friday. Give us a call at 1-800-323-2325. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay connected with all of our updates. And you can like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for our live videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.